And then I'm
Walter
7.
Hunt. So they were the director. Was Paul Raymond the director?
I told him if I have to pray, I write notes. So I've got us. These are topics in case we
Right.
In case we fizzle out.
And
we'll have
Dan
it.
Gilly was also the director.
I'm always
He
prepared.
was the director.
Yep.
That's
Well,
one of
who
my
started
gifts.
Life Bridges?
It was sort of like there was a need, and then they took people to Orange Grove that needed services, and then a few people in the community decided that it would be important to have services here in Bradley County, and that's sort of how it started. And Magid Lockhart was instrumental in that, and Ralph Summers. Those are two that were very instrumental.
Is that paid for through donations or grants or everything?
Well, not many donations or grants, but federal money, really, state and federal money. But we do have some grants that we get. People have made donations. Yes.
So it's a very needed thing, isn't it?
It is. You know, Walt, when the folks first came to Life Bridges, many of them came from Green Valley, which is an institution in Greenville, Tennessee. And they looked their lives had been hard, and it showed. Their clothes were dark. They just looked tough. They'd been institutions, 50 years ago were, and many of them had been in for 25 years. I sometimes say they looked a little like Holocaust victims, not that thin, but they looked rough. And so Walter, in trying to help them fit in, he didn't want to ask for money. He didn't want it to look so much like a charity. So he worked around the clock to provide in other ways, some through grants, but by using the state money and the federal money to use it really carefully and to make the most of that. We feel differently about it now. If you see us out in the community, you can sure see we look happy. We're not like having that dark cloak over us.
Yeah, it's not at all. That's why
And
you
so-
almost get confused about what it is.
That's it. So now we ask for money. We even have a gal that works for us, and she is one of her jobs is to have a spring fling every year. So we do that now.
You've even got logos, which they didn't used to have, right?
We've got it. We kind of have it all. We have a website, a newsletter.
Yeah.
Be careful. We'll put you on it. You may be on it. Just consider yourself on it.
I
now.
may be on it. If you drive down through there, it's an amazing. It's a campus.
It is.
I mean, isn't that almost overwhelming?
Well, we have a lot of houses too, in addition to
I
the
know
campus. Yeah.
And then you go down Durkee,
Chattanooga.
Truett Road.
Yeah, right,
Don't
that's
you have a facility down there?
On Kyle Lake.
Kyle Lake,
Yes.
yeah.
2 large facilities,
Yeah.
much more expensive because they are made inside. They're equipped. So if you had the difficulties, maybe even of someone in a nursing home, and you needed a tub that would raise or lift, and you needed a track in the ceiling in order to motivate around your home, they have therapy rooms. Beautiful, 2 very beautiful
High
homes.
level.
High
Golly.
level for people who have feeding tubes and much more
That is a
critical
big
needs.
deal.
It really is.
So
It's not a nursing home.
no.
No.
But we serve people through the continuum of their life. No one has to really go to a nursing home as a rule anymore. We can serve someone who is on hospice and all the way through to the end of your life. It's your home.
If we went back 60 years, who took care? Who filled this need?
That
It
was
really
tough.
wasn't filled very well. During the Kennedy administration, he focused on it in the 60s some. And then his brother, Robert, visited a facility in New York, and they took some video, and that really got a lot of attention. But even in Tennessee, there were times, and not a very recent, not a very distant past, where they would hose down the clients where they lived, when it would get dirty, they would just take a hose and wash it down.
What era
That's
was
within
this?
our lifetime.
60. In
Yeah,
the early,
50 years ago.
late 60s, late
Yep.
late 50s.
Yeah.
And who would send them to these places?
Well, if
I mean,
you
the
well,
family?
Times were rough, and then if you imagine, if you had a child that was developmentally delayed, and you had to work, it was difficult to take care of them, and parents didn't know what to do, and they did the best they could to take care of their offspring, but sometimes they were not able to, and so then they would take them to facilities. And
what were those facilities?
well, Orange Grove was. We have one in East Tennessee. What's the name of that?
That was Green
Green
Valley.
Green Valley.
Was probably the best of all of them.
And then sometimes they would drop their child off and never come back to visit again.
They didn't know what to do.
They didn't know what to do.
And then they parents outlived their children. We have many individuals in our that we provide services to, and their parents and grandparents passed away, and there was no one to take care of them. And so their
it's
church,
sad.
would take them, and then they would live at Green Valley. But times, Green Valley has closed now, as also the three large institutions, Clover Bottom in Nashville, and then Arlington in the Memphis area. All those are closed now, which is good. Community supports and services are what our state provides now. No more institution in that way.
Is it all just people, or is it just? If it's not a nursing home, and it's not a foster place, then how do you classify it? It seems like it'd be
it's
so
like-
broad.
We call it supported living. It probably is attuned to something you would think about a group home, only there's only 3 people in most of our homes. So you have shift staff. Somebody, day services, works in the day. Second shift, somebody works with you, helps you cook dinner, and you participate in whatever you can, just like everything you do at night. Grocery shopping, cook your dinner, take your bath, brush your teeth, shave, all that. And then third shift comes, and they are awake at night. They clean the house a lot, and part of what they do.
Golly.
So it's a big
big
deal.
deal.
We have about 460 employees right now in 44 homes.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
All in need.
That's
I'm
right.
sure that you don't broaden the scope of what you do on purpose,
Oh,
right?
Right.
No, we don't. There was a time we got into some other things in addition to this primary focus, but when we decided this is our main focus and we're not going to do anything else other than take care of these clients. So, yeah.
What would you say a client has to be classified as to enter into
Below
the program?
70 IQ.
They take a test? Who administers a test?
Well, the psychologist administered the test. Yeah.
And they say, okay, this.
Right.
IQ test. Tom Biller locally,
So
they
he
do
comes
it.
in and says, okay, I'm ready to do a test on this person.
The school does them also.
What if you get somebody that says 71?
It's not good.
It's
know
not
what I'm
good.
saying?
Well, they don't qualify.
You have to have a line, right?
line.
Yep. And 70 is the line, yeah.
I guess it's like just an oral test or some sort.
Well, yeah, part of it's oral. Yeah, most of it would be oral for these, yeah.
I've often wondered how accurate IQ. You hear these people say, "Oh, Einstein was what, a 130 or something." How accurate could they be? I'm sure a psychologist would know for y'all's purposes, but I always wonder: is there a standard test, or is it just
Right. Well, if you met people at Life Bridges, you would find a huge disparity there. People who maybe are nearly bedbound or have to maybe in a wheelchair and can't do much for themselves, all the way to we had one couple who got married. We've had 3 people who got their driver's license in years gone by. Most people are in the middle. But I'll tell you what is common about us. Everybody likes to go out to eat. Almost everybody, and people like to do the same things you do. We took an inventory one time of the people who were in our workshop, which we don't have anymore. That might be another topic. And we said, what do you want? What would you like better about the workshop? And they said, better work product and more money. And we said, okay, yeah, that's what
most
we all
people
want.
want. Yeah.
A novel idea.
It is, yeah, but our clients just want a better life, like everybody does, and we're there to support them
That's
to get a
what we
better
do.
life.
So you're not really giving them health care necessarily.
No,
Well-
we provide that as part of what we provide, but that's not the primary purpose.
It's just helping them to live their life to the
Exactly.
fullest.
That's exactly
That's
right.
all it is.
That's all it is. And we have a lot that do need certainly health care, and we have a medical clinic. We have 50-some nurses right there. We have
50
physicians.
nurses.
How many
Golly.
exactly?
Yeah, we have more like 60-something, and I mean, it's a lot. And then we
It's a
probably
lot.
have about 6 in our clinic, and then we have medical homes that are
And
medical
this is all in that 400.
in that 400.
And there was a time we didn't have a medical clinic, and nobody in the state had a medical clinic, and they thought that would be a novel idea.
Yeah.
So we have a medical clinic. We're one of the few.
It's great. We're only
two
about
in the-
5.
Well,
five
you
in
give
the
like
state.
primary care or something, or not
primary care. Yeah, it would
just
be
a
primary
very basic.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to go see a doctor, sort of thing.
Oh, when we tell you, you're going to want to get on the list. You know who works with us? Dr. Dwayne Knight for 35 years, and now for the last almost, I think it's 8 years, Dr. Joe Mazzolini.
I've
He's
heard that
fabulous.
name.
He's fabulous.
But you've been there for 35 years.
I haven't. I left for 6 years in the middle of all that. So
Where'd you go?
Well, I didn't mean to.
She
I-
lost her way, you know.
I did. I graduated from Lee, and I went to work. I had already worked for Life Bridges as a house parent, my husband and I. And I'd worked there 10 years, and I thought, I didn't really mean to do this with my whole life. So I did a little home health social work. I worked at Pine Ridge Treatment Center and a dialysis clinic, and all of them, one of them went out of business. One of them, they laid off a lot of people, and one of them, this and that. And so Walter called me and said, "You want to come back?" And I thought, I better get back to what I,
Did you just feel
loved.
more comfortable there?
I do, and it's just been good. I've had almost every job we have, and it's been a blessing in my life.
35 years. Were you from Cleveland originally?
No, I was from Southern Indiana. Came here. I was Church of God. Like many, I came. There weren't very many Church of God boys from where I was from, so I thought I'd come to Cleveland and see.
How did you get to be Church of God from a place where there weren't many Church of God?
Well, we had a Church of God in the town that I was from. It was just small, about 100
So you heard
people.
of Lee College through the
Through the
brochures
network.
and pamphlets.
Through the network.
So do you run the whole thing?
I do, sort of. I mean, with a lot of help. I say that if there's anything great about what we do, it's that we have about 8 directors over different programs, and every single one of them, you're not going to believe it when I tell you, are the perfect person. And I don't think you get that very many times in your life.
That's great.
You
I
don't.
believe I'm looking at one.
You work at it.
That's right.
You work at it, you work at it, and we just happen to have landed there. And so that's a blessing, because we also have therapy. We have a physical therapist, a doctorate of physical therapy, who was once a house parent for us. And we also have a physician's assistant, and and her husband used to be house parents for us. You just
Seems
see,
like y'all bring them in organically, sort of.
well, and then both of them were gone from us maybe for 20 years, and then came back, because it is a work that is you can find a lot of satisfaction, and you love it. And when you come back, I mean, your friends, they're like, "Hey, where have you been? What have you been doing?" And
How many clients is that?
that's about 180 clients.
That's a lot. You need about two people per client, I guess, or
Well, it's 24-hour care. for
Yeah.
some of these
Look at
are.
all those shifts and
Yeah.
weekend shifts.
yeah, that's about 2 people at a minimum per client, or roughly, I guess,
And we're a good 60 people short.
of help or
Help. Help.
Help's hard to get right now.
Help is very hard to get.
What would be the difference between a nurse working for Life Bridges and a nurse working at the hospital?
Well, it's similar because a nurse is going to give treatments and they're going to pass medications, but again, they're going to work with three to six people as a rule. And it's going to be the same people. And see, in a hospital, people, rotate in and out, so that's it's either a plus or a negative. It depends on the patient, I guess.
So maybe it's not as strenuous or stress related, maybe?
We have some nurses that are in their 70s that work for us and we have some staff. We have had staff be 80 years old and work for us. So it is not, probably, you could easily say it is not as strenuous, say, as a 12-hour shift, certainly on a medical floor or at the nursing home where you would.
And then you get to know the clients.
Right, yeah. And it's almost more of a labor of love, maybe. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
That sounds like the 8 people that
Yes.
are directors are probably really want to help.
Actually, Terry Kaywood just retired from us, and the way he got started with us, Walter asked him if he would just try working there for a couple weeks to see if he would like it after he retired from being a principal, and he stayed 20-some years. Yeah.
Sounds like something I'd do. So are you the head medical guy there?
No,
or?
I'm the chairman of the board. Yeah, I'm not employed there. I'm on the board.
You're
For
just
like 40
yeah,
years,
yeah,
40-something years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Have you seen a lot of changes in
Oh,
that?
yes. Probably when I came on the board, actually Vicki Beatty called me in '78 and asked if I would, she said, do you know about Hermes? And I said, or whatever it was at the time. And I said, no, I don't really. And she said, well, we would like for you to consider being on the board. And so I thought I would try it for a year or two. And
You see what happened?
that was in '78.
Yeah.
But probably then, I don't know exactly, but we probably had around 20 employees, and now 500, more or less.
Golly.
And probably the budget was maybe, I don't know, maybe a couple $100,000, and now
21
20
million.
million, yeah, over 20 million, yeah.
And that's been, I remember when Hermes was over there off by the Justice Center. Was that the first place?
No, we have a home there now, and it still is there. But no, we actually, our original facility when I came on the board was storefront downtown Cleveland. Appler Shoes?
Yeah.
Okay. It's where Appler Shoes was, right downtown on the storefront there. Yeah, glass front. Okay. And so we had our offices there, and we would have our board meetings in there. And then we moved from there to the county health department.
Yes,
And,
that's when I came.
Okay. And so
What did they do, share a space?
at the county health department?
Yeah.
No. It was deserted. They didn't use it for
They
the county
left
health
it.
department. They left it, and so then we took it over. And we were there, I don't know how many years, but for a while. And so then we took a big step forward and built our own facility out on Old Chattanooga Pike, and that's where we've been ever since.
But that's not, to me, that's not been that long ago. I remember when they bought the land and cleared the land.
Well, it's been
1991.
okay.
To me,
30
that
years.
just seems like a few.
Isn't that something? I know. But see, that's where Walter Hunt and his planning and thinking and financial, and the board worked with him as well, but that was
Evidently,
his gift.
he really got it started off good.
He did.
He certainly worked it.
And back in the early days, when he first came on as executive director, he shares a story where Yolanda was in charge of finance, and she came in and said, "Well, Walter, what do you want to do?" He said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, we don't have money to make the payroll." He said, "Well, what do you usually do?" She said, well, when we get in this situation, we call Fred Cove and see if he can give us some more money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how Walter got started off. So he did a great job managing the money.
He did. He did. So that was his first week, and Fred Coe was someone in the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, we call now. But you know who he went to? He went to Bobby Taylor, who worked for SunTrust at that time.
That's a long time ago.
And
A long time.
he fronted Walter the money. I don't know how that went. I wasn't there then.
And
but
then he asked when Walter could pay it back, and said, "Well, when we get it, we'll pay you back."
and
So they were very kind to us.
you know, just think, because if he hadn't done that,
I know it.
what would have happened? you
What would have
wonder?
happened? That was what I was thinking. We'd be reverting back to the. I mean, who else would have done it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
So-
not another program for that
There's
that I
really
know
no.
of.
Nope.
I mean, you think I don't know of any other program that's similar.
Orange Grove in Chattanooga, but nothing else in Bradley County.
What is that like, Orange Grove?
Well, it's larger than us, but they do very similar kinds of work. They have homes like we do, and they have the same kind of programs.
Do you think it's going to get to where these facilities are taking more and more people in, and there's going to be more people there than there are? I mean, it's a form of socialism in a sense, right?
No, we're not going to get there. I don't think. I don't know where you were going with that, but
Well, I'm just saying, if y'all weren't there taking care of these people that need help, then it would become a burden to the families that are not trained to deal with them.
Many people still live at home with their families. But it's also seen as a way to, people they see their brothers and sisters grow up and graduate and get married. And we have several people in our program, and they were like, I want my own place. I want my own place. And so this is a way for them to be independent. What's interesting is that if you have a disability of this nature and you have an IQ of below 70, you're entitled to SSI, which those payments are about $775 a month. And for that, that's why people live in groups of 3, because they take their SSI, their monthly income, and they pool that together, and they rent a house, they pay their own food, electricity, telephone, all of that. What the state pays us is for the care, the staffing. So a lot of people don't realize that. They think we pay, or that we do manage that and help them find good housing. And we have been so fortunate with the people. A lot of people have partnered with us. Hank Wilson, for example. I know everybody will be calling him now for housing helps. But we take care of their property, and we rent about 20-ish places, and then we own about 20-something homes of our own.
And then you have the 2 facilities on Kyle Lake.
Right. We're purchasing those. Those are, I think, the only things we don't own actually outright. So we're fortunate. We have a lot of, for our community. You think grassroots effort in Cleveland in the 70s. A minister, a doctor, a teacher, parents. Ralph Summers. They were taking their child to Chattanooga, and Sue had a station wagon, we're told, and she would go back and forth every day to Chattanooga. And so they band together. First Christian Church on Ocoee Street, not far from where we are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just
sure.
2
that
rocks.
was the first place. And I wrote down, because I never can remember the names, Bradley Adult Day Activity Center. What a mouthful. Just where they went for the day. Then Hermes. The god of transportation, that we were transporting people from one place in life to another. That's kind of interesting. Habilitation, education, residential, mediation, and employment services. That's what Hermes stood for. I still kind of got to shake my head on that. Yeah. But then Bradley Cleveland Developmental Services, we got all the building permit calls and the dead dog calls and all that.
So all of those things fall under your...
It's the same, we're the same
same
place.
That's the change of names over the years.
So go over those again. Those are interesting.
So Bradley Adult Activity.
What year?
That was in 1973. And then it didn't last probably so long, couple years, and then we became Hermes. That's when I came. In 1981, we were Hermes. And then you came in.
Yeah, 78.
And it was Hermes then?
It started being Hermes in 78.
Because Walter came in like 79 to 80. Then Bradley Cleveland Developmental Services, Bradley Cleveland Services, And then life bridges. We don't get bridges calls, though, like people who want to build bridges. But we are building bridges in people's life because we're connecting
And that's
people.
very descriptive of what we do. We
That's
provide bridges so that they can live better lives and have their dreams come true.
It's true.
Now Bradley Cleveland Services. I always get that confused with Cleveland Bradley.
With Bradley Cleveland Community Services.
I'm glad y'all changed the name because
Yes.
they were so similar.
Because they're the folks who do the
Everything.
emergency shelter, commodities,
Senior Center
yes, senior center,
Meals on
weatherization, and Meals on Wheels. Yes, very
and rent
good.
assistance.
They're awesome.
They are.
They're awesome. If you're going to get mixed up with somebody, it'd be great. But we totally do different.
Yeah, they
different
almost fill the other gaps. Does that make sense?
It does.
Sure, sure. Now here's an interesting point where you're going to remember this. Dan Gilley was our director before Walter.
Was he the sheriff then? Or
He
what?
was the executive director.
He
And he and
became
Walter
sheriff later.
switched
Oh.
places, I think, or I've heard, or
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that was.
That is a big. But you're the director now.
I am.
So Dan Gilley was in charge of all of this at one time?
Before Walter, that would have been in like 79
He
or
was.
80.
He would have been a good one.
Oh yeah, and then back when Dan Gilley was the CEO, Quentin Lane was on the board, and Elvis Brandon was on the board.
Yes.
We had a
Dr. Sam Horner.
That's
I
right.
wrote a few
Sam
down.
Horner.
Yep.
John Cate, such a good
John
friend to
Cate,
so
yep.
many.
John Cate.
Dr. Stanley Pettit, Drew Robinson, and Larry Wright. Fantastic board
Yeah.
members.
How in the world could anybody? I mean, a board member I can see, but you being the director, I don't know how you can oversee all that. That has got to be so stressful.
Well, it's those 8 directors I was telling you about who do their part and run their part of the pie. See, they really
What are
manage
the
their
parts
pie.
of the pie?
Well, so you would have day services, and that's Sarah Jones. You would have residential services, Jamie Sanders and Lionel Scotton. The business office and business management, payroll, Ginger Davis is our CFO. ICF, Teresa Tootin. Therapy, Ronnie Rawls, Dr. Ronnie Rawls. Aurelia Konarski over our medical clinic. Maintenance, we have a maintenance department. Awesome director.
over 100 vehicles.
Over
Yeah.
him.
Is that fall
Larry,
under maintenance?
Larry Malure, Doug Ledford. Boy, if I've missed somebody
Each of those are huge areas too.
Oh, it would be. If you divide 400 people up.
Oh yeah.
Oh, human resources, Tammy McSpadden. Purchasing,
Tammy.
Kelly
She's been
Wilkie.
there as long as you have.
She's been there a good while, 20-something years. Her mother worked there when I first came. Tammy, we laugh and say about Tammy, she lived in a group home. See, that many years ago in the 80s, a family moved in to, we only had 4 homes, I think, then. And so you moved in, your husband and wife, and so Tammy and her 2 sisters, they lived at 1100 Ocoee Street. The last house on the left on Ocoee Street before you turn right to go to our place, right before the viaduct there, where you would go, what turns there?
I can't-
Wholesale Supply.
Yeah.
That big
Yeah.
square yellow house.
Pretty old.
Tammy,
Always very old.
Yeah.
Tammy
Oh, yeah.
lived there. They lived upstairs.
Before she got married?
She was
to
in
Mark?
6th or 7th grade when I first knew her.
I went to high school with her. I built her and Mark's house.
Really?
Oh.
They'd love that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, they're just great people, too. So you have all those people who are doing their part. Then we have IT. I almost forgot them.
Oh, yeah,
Tim
I
Poe.
can't forget.
I mean, boy, these
Yeah.
days, that's
You
huge.
think it's not important to you. Something
Oh,
goes
it's very
out.
important.
We have our own database, and it keeps everything that we do shareable with those who need it, related to people's medical program planning, contacts. So we're
Yeah,
able to
medical
do.
would have to. You'd have to have their medical records.
And we have our clients working out in the community as well. I guess, do you know about that?
I don't.
Okay, so then we support their employment because our clients have a right to work like other people. And so we have staff that go out with them and assist them in the jobs they do.
Give me an example of that.
Well, you go
Right.
to Jenkins Deli. We can't really say names, but there's a gentleman there who washes dishes, and I believe he's part of the greeting committee that comes around and talks to everybody. A tall fella who has been
I
long,
know who he's been
long-
there for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
But we have folks that work at McDonald's, Burger King. We have worked at the hospital cleaning in the past. I wish I'd written some of those down. Many different places. We work at T-Dot in Chattanooga cleaning. A lot of cleaning. We've got a group at Lubing Systems with Tim Childers.
What about Eddie Dyer?
He's one of our, you happen to know him. He's not
I
a
know
client,
him.
so we can say
Yeah,
he is an
yeah.
employee.
Yeah.
I've got this feeling that you have a social services heart.
Well, yeah, I eat lunch with Eddie every Sunday after church,
What about that?
and or Edvis they call him. You know, he impersonated Elvis for years.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yeah, he's on YouTube. You can see him.
I think he has come, and before he came to work for us, he used to come to some of the folks' parties, and he would,
And-
be the entertainment. Yeah, it was great. And now he works for us. He's a
Yeah.
direct support
Yeah.
professional.
He's been to college for that. Mm-hmm. He's got a degree in social something.
Probably
He's more
sociology.
educated than I am.
I can tell you have a heart for people, though, and some other things that you've said.
Yeah.
You probably ought to be more entwined with us than you are. This may be a start for that.
I'm so far out of time. Now, Dr. Brown, what is it you do during the regular
I'm
course
a
of the
marriage
day?
and family therapist, and have been for my career. Yeah.
So you help just like a marriage counselor.
Yeah, I try to help people have better relationships, better marriages.
Boy, that's tough.
It's tough, yeah.
Golly. That's a whole thing in itself.
It really is. It really is. And then my son and daughter both followed after that, and my daughter is a marriage and family therapist. Her PhD is in child and family studies, and then my son's a social worker. His PhD is in social work. So, so they both do the same similar
What do you
thing.
think made your whole family be in that field?
Well, they grew up around it. But I think for myself, I got it started, of course, and I'm not sure why I took such an interest in it in college, but I just wanted to make a difference in people's lives and help people have better relationships. And so then my kids were brought up around that, and
Were your parents into that?
no, they were not. My parents were sharecroppers on a farm in North Carolina, tobacco farm. My granddad could not read or write. He never owned a car. He never drove a car, and he never owned a house. Yeah, so that's where I
You
came
didn't
from.
come from money.
No, I didn't come from money. Yeah.
Do you think is marriage counseling different now than it was? How long have you been doing that?
Well, 40 some years. Yeah.
So if somebody has a problem and they come and talk to you, they pretty much needs to be on the lines of marriage.
No, I do individual counseling as well, but 90% of what I do is related to relationships.
Whether it be marriage or son and mother or
Yeah.
father, so just relationships.
Yeah, it is. Mostly marriage, though.
Do you think that marriage relationships how much different are they than they were when you started?
Well, the core issues are still the same, but they take on different faces now, I think. Society has changed and relationships have changed, but still, I was interviewed on a TV station in 1978, and they asked me what the biggest problem was, and I'm going to say this biggest problem then and now, all these years later, is the same thing: communication. That's probably the number one problem. Taking the time to listen to each other very well, and taking the time to communicate very effectively what you want, what you need, your feelings, and
Now-
then listen to the other person do the same thing.
Now, but sometimes if you tell a person what you think, it's worse off than if you just kept your mouth shut.
I think though.
So how do you get?
Okay, probably if you take a person in the community, that would be true. But if you take the person you're married to, it's important that we share ourselves with each other, and that's what intimacy is all about. To be able to disclose, and for them to get to know us, and for us to get to know them. And if you don't disclose, then you can't very well get to know each other. So communication is essential for intimacy.
And that was true back then.
It was
now.
true then, and it's true now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still is.
But it seems to me like the people that communicate more had the most problems.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I mean, if you say, "Well, I like your hair better long than short," you could start a war.
Okay.
Well, he didn't say everything you want any way you
Yeah.
want. See, maybe that's
But
the
you
key.
say
is,
communication, so
Okay,
Gently.
but communication is so broad. But I think the key is, though, to communicate more effectively, which means that you're not going to say rude things to each other.
but say this person is a bad communicator.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's why we go to
So you
Dr.
couldn't be married if you were a bad communicator.
I help them to be better communicators. Yeah.
If you're if they go to you first
Right.
before they split up or whatever because of bad communication.
Right, yeah.
I'm just not sure if communication is always the best thing, because, and not just in marriage but in everything. If we told everybody what we thought, we'd be in trouble.
Well, I think you have to weigh that out and decide what's important to tell. I agree with you.
So where do you draw the line between communications and not going over everything?
Well, all that's communication, though. And so if you don't tell somebody something they need to know about you, then if you don't tell somebody what you want, then they probably aren't going to be able to help you get your needs and what you want met.
Or just live with it.
Or
Say
just
you
live with it, yes.
Say you don't like rice, and you say, well, I don't want rice.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I won't fix
But
rice.
then here's the thing, though. If you don't express yourself and you live with it, people do that.
Yeah.
I had one couple come in, and for 20 years, he would sit in his recliner, his wife would go to bed, and he said, I'll be there a little bit later. He slept in the recliner for 20 years. Okay, now, he had resentments that were built up that he didn't tell his wife, and so then those resentments became obstacles and kept distance between the two of them. So he needed to communicate more effectively and to get that out so that there wasn't that kind of blockage between them.
He could have just kept sleeping in the couch on the.
Oh,
in the
he
chair.
could. He did it for 20 years, yeah, but that's not a that's not the kind of relationship most people would
But it
like.
was working.
Oh, it wasn't working. No, it wasn't working well at all. He slept on the recliner for 20 years. I wouldn't think that's working very well.
No, but they stayed together.
Yeah.
What was the end of that story?
They came to see me.
And
Yeah.
then you said, hey, you need to say why you're sleeping in the recliner. And then what happened?
They talk about it,
Yeah.
yeah. And after 20 years,
Then they got a divorce.
I don't recall if they did or not, but after 20 years, it's a difficult pattern to break, you know.
But do you think psychology on all levels is the same since 1978 you're talking about? Or is it pretty much the same even though people's changed to where the psychology is different?
I don't really know what you're asking. I think that essentially people are still the same, but our society has changed a lot, and what is considered normal is very different today than it was in the 50s. It's very different. But I think the core values are still the same. I think we need to respect each other. I think we need to treat each other right. I think we need to be considerate of each other. I think we need to be forgiving. I think we need to be loving. And that hasn't changed.
So what has changed?
What has changed?
The values, did you say?
Yeah, values have changed, I think. Social norms have changed.
But well, the social norms have changed, obviously, but the things that have stayed the same are general respect.
That's what we still need, and that's what causes us to get along so well, is respect for each other and being actually practicing the Christian values.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to say.
But then the other things, so that has not changed in your opinion.
Nope, that's still what it takes to have a good society.
And if it hadn't changed since then, it's probably not going to change in the next 40 years.
I think that's what the world needs more of. Yeah.
But the things that have changed are the people's interpretation of stuff.
Probably.
Now, if you move to a foreign country that had different values, do you think those core things that you're talking about would still be the same? Is it a human nature thing?
I think they're universal. I think that all over the world, it doesn't matter what language you speak, I think we all need to practice love, respect, being responsible for self, being considerate of each other, and forgiving.
But if you go to some societies, they have arranged marriages, and some here we don't, and some places they don't get married. Or not just in marriage, but any of these other values, those can differ.
Oh, those can differ.
Those can differ, and we can change that within time. But this basic psychology that people need,
I think the core values that I mentioned, I don't think
are
they
human
change.
nature.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think they're. I don't know about human nature, but that's what we all need. Yeah.
What do you think the human nature is more? Do you think human nature is to not be that way? Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Because we've been fighting forever.
Yeah, I think though, if if we talk about our basic core feelings and sometimes anger that can be built up, then that can control us. So if you're talking about emotions controlling us and negative feelings controlling us, that could get out of hand. And I think that is out of hand a lot to in our culture today.
So the human nature is not to be kind and considerate.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I mean, you wonder about that.
Yeah,
which
you do
which
wonder.
is the human nature, to be mean or considerate?
What do you think?
I think human nature is to be selfish.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that.
I believe
that
you're
we are.
right. I believe it's a selfish thing.
And that's why I think the Lord helps some people.
I agree.
You know, I think the Lord will help all those people who go to Him.
I mean, they were fighting in the Bible.
That's
oh,
true.
yeah, they were. Yeah.
Over religion,
Right.
land, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. That you'd think that if those core things have not changed, that we'd have them figured out by now.
You would think so.
Or maybe we've got them figured out, but the coping skills is what's off.
Well, you have to make a decision to practice those things, really, don't you?
It's work.
It is.
And a reminder,
That's right.
because you get back to your human nature, which may be selfishness or.
Yeah, but you know, like even a relationship, as we got started on this conversation about marriage, okay? But even in a marriage, even though you know that it's important to respect your wife or you respect your husband, sometimes we don't do what we know is best to do. We get caught up with the mundane things of life, and maybe we get frustrated at work, and we get we let our anger out, and we're getting short with our spouse. But so even though we know what the right thing to do is, sometimes we don't do it. So it's very important for us to stay focused and to keep before us, keep centered, and to know how we're acting. You know, to be respectful, polite, kind, and I try to help people do that.
So you're more or less a reminder to do those things.
Oh yeah, that's important. Yeah.
Because if you weren't reminded, you'd revert back to human nature.
Yeah, and some people don't know how to do that.
Just like some people don't know how to speak in public, or
That's right.
or ride a bicycle,
Exactly
or
right.
swim.
Yeah.
I think it will help you in your business and with your employees. We have focused a lot in the last 5 years about helping our employees get along better and to accept one another's differences, because people have a lot of different, everybody has a strength, and although that's wonderful, it often collides with someone else, even though it's a strength. Someone who's like driven to get things done, and someone else who
More methodical
really
or
is
something.
just really like an encourager and kind of wants everybody to be happy. Most of us are not well balanced. We're kind of, we
Yeah.
have something that's really on our heart.
And she's had training at the agency to help people get along better, and it's worked because people are different, and it's important to understand the other person and how they function, what their personality is like, so that we can better get along with them. And
certainly.
If you were in jail, that's why they have so many fights in jail, because there's not somebody saying, "Oh, and I need to teach y'all how to get along." Who's going to care? Maybe they just have to work it out.
That'd be tough.
it'd be tough.
It would be. I'm curious to know if they work it out in another method than what we try to do is teach people to get along. Because it's hard to teach me how to get along with somebody that I don't get along with.
Well, if you're motivated, though,
know what?
Dee.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, if you just don't like somebody, you just can't hardly get along with them. It doesn't matter what they do.
Okay, so what do you do about that then?
Well, I don't know. I usually try to just deal with them on the level that I have to deal with them,
And I think
and deal with it
that works.
for that period.
And if you don't have to deal with them, it may be better not to be around them.
No, that's right. That's where I was getting.
Yes.
The fact
But if
that-
you have to deal with them in a limited amount and around the issues that you have to deal with them
and
around.
specify it in your mind before you do it. So,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm going to go check this job. I'm going to see that guy, and I'm going to be there for 20 minutes, and I'm going to get me a cup of coffee afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's very realistic.
you
I
know.
can tell you've been there.
Yeah, I've been there, and not just on the job, but maybe a customer.
Yes.
I know what they're wanting to move this thing back to where they had it 3 days ago after we moved it back. So I'm just going to.
Yeah,
But
right.
but that's easy to deal with. But it's harder to deal with somebody if you don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a problem.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you can have any coping skills with that except just try to limit it.
Yeah. That's a different issue right there.
That's a whole nother issue.
It is.
Because you don't have to deal with that person. With your wife, I guess you would.
Well, yeah.
You know,
But
it's-
hopefully you liked her at some point,
Yeah. Hopefully yeah. And I don't have any marital problems, but I'm saying if a person, I was just
Yeah.
referring to what, but you don't really do child stuff, but I guess that would be relationship too, right?
It would be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is like a perfect thing for your field, I guess, right?
Yeah, it is.
Dealing with people.
Sure.
So, are you? Where is your practice at?
On 20th Street.
Seems like I knew where that was. 20th Street. I can't place it.
Dr. Free built the house, and I bought his house
Oh, yeah.
30-some years ago.
And what part of North Carolina was your family from?
I was from Sampson County, 60 miles south of Raleigh, 60 miles
Well,
east
that's a
of
long way
Wilmington.
from Cleveland.
It is, yeah, 500 miles.
How'd you land here?
Well, I was Church of God of Prophecy, and I came here thinking this would be a good place and to do marriage counseling, yeah.
Boy, that was a shot in the dark.
It was a shot in the dark, yes.
How old were you then?
Oh, when I came here?
Yeah.
I came here when I was in my 20s, actually, yeah.
You've been here
A long time,
yeah. It's a great place to live,
It is.
isn't it?
It really is.
A lot of people come here.
Yeah. I mean, where else could you do all of this work and build? I'd say that building this is also a tribute to the people in Bradley County.
Oh, definitely.
Helping.
It is.
Oh, definitely. We didn't mention Brenda Hughes was on our board, and I think both maybe Hal and Star Dixon
So
both.
they both were on the
When
board.
you start thinking back, you just think of all the people who have been connected with us. And Damaris Betancourt is one of the Rocks of Life Bridges, and she is actually our operations director, not she over case management and oversees all of our accreditations and surveys. Really important, and I failed to mention her, but that's very interesting what you said, because like the field lines go out to, like we're connected to so many
yes.
places.
Yeah.
Think about Special Olympics. So Civitan, our club in Bradley County, that their main mission for the Civitan Club is to sponsor Special Olympics and keep the park at Stewart Elementary School, the inclusion park. They have, I'm actually a member of that club, and over the last 5 years, a handful of people have raised $250,000 that has
amazing.
upgraded the park and just about to build the second pavilion. They have the money. We have the money to do that. So, just some awesome people in Cleveland that we're connected with. First Baptist Church. Wow, First Baptist Church. Dave Luzatter has a Sunday school class. He has an interesting story. He had a brother who had a disability, and his dad worked hard and was gone most of the time. His mom stayed home and took care of his brother, who had physical disabilities as well as a mental disability. So wheelchair and lifting him. And he said, my mom never got to go on vacation, ever, that I remember. There was no one to leave my brother with. They took care of him at home until he passed away. And then he said my mom was quite elderly. And he said, as I traveled, you need to have him on your program. He's so interesting.
What's his name?
Dave Luzatter. He he developed something in milking machines for cattle. Anyway, and so he traveled all around the world, I guess around the United States in that business. But wherever he went to the Baptist church, and he would start a ministry or Sunday school class for people with intellectual disabilities. So he just loved them, and they loved him. Folks, one of the things they like the best is someone who wants to be their friend and that they can connect with. So he began to have a camp every year wherever he was. And he said, I want their parents to be able to take a vacation and feel like that their child is getting a vacation.
That bothered him,
It bothered him. And so to this day, now First Baptist has bought the, what I'm told is the old Boy Scout camp. And we go every summer. They shuttle us there in boats, and we'll have about 25 people stay all night. So it's kind of a little bit rough terrain there, and but we'll have a big music program, talent show, boating, fishing, swimming, singing, eating.
You have taken this from something that you see on TV, where they had a handicapped child that needed help, or somebody needed help, and they you hear these stories that they kept them in a barn and all these horrible
We've taken something that used to look sad, and now
and you've got a logo.
If you're connected with
you're not hiding it. You've actually got a logo. It's not something. It's not something to be ashamed of or hidden. It's just I'm left-handed, you're right-handed.
One of our clients,
right?
True.
One of our clients was born and left on the steps in Knoxville and deserted there.
At what age?
At a baby.
At a baby.
I could handle a baby easier than I could somebody 5.
There you go. You think, but then you get to know them, and a lot of times, I think that, the Lord has a plan and a purpose, so the Bible says, for all of us. And I think that the people that we provide services to certainly are not exempt from that, and that they have a lot to give and to share, even if it's in taking care of them. But there's a guy who's well known, and because of confidentiality, I couldn't call his name, but I'll just thank you that you might know him. But he used to walk around town a lot. He's a Clevelander. And he's still alive and doing good. And I have people on Facebook, we'll have people reach out. But I used to go to Cracker Barrel and I'd see him, he'd have his ticket and he'd sit like this, he'd get dropped off over there, and somebody from Cleveland would come by and take that
Yeah, it
ticket.
was his birthday.
And one
it was
time
always his birthday.
One time
yeah.
I said to him, "Don't do that." I said, "You've got more money in your billfold than most of the people here at Cracker Barrel." And he said, "Oh, no, something. That's what I do. I want to do." And later I thought, I guess the Lord maybe, chastised me for that. And it was like, it's more about those people than it is him.
Oh, sure.
It's good for them.
Sure.
They need to reach
Sure.
out. He is saying, "Hey, wouldn't you like to treat me to
Well,
lunch? Or give me a ride?"
That's just what he was taught to do, I guess.
Well,
And what's the difference between him holding that up and me, getting some other help from somewhere
Somewhere
else
else, that's
on
it.
something?
He's just helping people connect to their benevolent side, and or giving him a ride because he did walk, and people walk. But he was a Clevelander. His family from here. He's
I
from
knew
a
his
great
dad.
family.
I knew his dad real well.
Great family.
Real well. His dad really helped me one time years ago.
Sweet.
And I always remember that.
Well,
and
they're
I thought
good people.
he didn't have to do it. And I always thought, well, I used to give that guy a ride, stop and get in the car. But I'm glad that he's with you all
But
the
isn't
time.
that great that just all works out? You think, too, Medical Center Pharmacy, Joe Moore is a big friend, good friend to us. We and always looking for ways to help us. We recently had a job fair that he sponsored and helped us with at his property. He has nice, road frontage to Coe Street. And so in these times that we're in right now, it's difficult to find people to work for
Everybody's got help wanted.
$12-ish an hour.
Can somebody call y'all and get help through your jobs program?
Oh, yes.
Certainly.
Do you have how many people do you have that are wanting to go to work?
Well, we probably have you mean like people who are in our program?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
certainly.
You mean openings for employment?
He means
No,
clients
I mean
to work.
clients that would say somebody's got a restaurant and they've got
Oh,
a
I
sign
see.
that says
We
Okay.
probably
help
have
wanted.
10 people who would like to go to work. Now, and if they can't do the job on their own, they have a job coach that can go with them until they can get the hang of it. So
What better than to hire somebody that's got a coach?
I'm telling
Oh,
you,
that's right.
it's a great.
I mean, think about
It
that.
is, yeah.
And then often they
Two
can
for
learn
one.
to
Yeah.
do it, to do the job on their own.
Now, who is this coach? Who would this coach be?
We hire those people, someone who hasn't, people have a knack in helping people with disabilities to learn a job. There's a knack to it. It's a gift, I guess.
Some people have a knack for helping people do a job.
To teach them and to help them to figure out.
Now, how did you know that?
Well, you just learn that by watching. We have a couple of people, and I've heard them say, this person isn't very good with maybe, wouldn't be great in organizing and writing a big assessment about somebody, but they can look at a job and work with an individual, and they can figure out a way to help that person to be able to do the job. For example, if you have to, say you have to put, 10 nuts, bolts, and screws, they'll make a jig so that you can put those on there and then put those in an envelope, or make it easy so it's because you have to make production usually when you're doing something like that. Or they help them figure out ways maybe to wear some type of an apron where you have different things, like a place, if you don't have good use of one of your hands, where you can put almost like a construction person's apron, so you can put trash bags in one.
Now, could this coach do it better themselves, or are they just better at showing somebody how they?
Well, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
But they just gifted in teaching people and being able to look at a factory or a restaurant and say, I have someone who can do that job.
That is a gift, isn't it, to know that?
Very good.
That's very, very interesting, isn't it?
You don't always know it till you get out and try
You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know if you was even good at it yourself. But you'd almost be paying the coach to watch the employee.
Right, but most of
Yeah.
the folks do end up working on their own without that person.
Yeah, it
Because
wouldn't
we
be, but just a
train-
few times or what.
Right.
And a lot of people with disabilities are better at doing routine stuff than somebody else would. Somebody else would actually
Very good.
overthink the situation.
Yes, our folks love to roll silverware. And when I say our folks, not everybody likes that, but there are several people who have done that for different restaurants. Jenkins has been, Kay Jenkins was in Civitan and was very supportive and helped with Special Olympics for many years, and so she has, employed people and found niches that they were good at.
Isn't
and
it something
working
that
for her.
we're a society that we need somebody to roll our silverware?
There you go.
That's a job. Think about that.
That's a good job.
You'd
Is what
think
that is.
you'd think we just. I mean, we're the ones that's gotten soft, haven't we?
Yeah.
Hey, nobody's rolled my silverware.
Well, it just helps
I'm
them when
mad.
it just helps them when they're distributing it, probably, so they're not.
Yeah.
I guess that
dropping
keeps
it.
you from having a napkin on the table.
Well, it's
Keeps it
organization,
together.
really.
So what? Now, if I was to drive by there right now, what's going on that campus? Is it dead because it's Sunday, or is there things going on?
Well, just yesterday we had an Eagle Scout, Hunter Ellis, who was on our property with his team, and he was finishing up in the Memorial Garden, and they have replaced the swing there, which had kind of deteriorated, put two beautiful 4x4 planters out. And
What's it memorializing?
well, a few individuals that have passed away. It's a place to go and to just think about them. Years ago when cremation was first done,
That have
then people's parents maybe would take their ashes, and there's not really a graveside to go back to. So there are three people. There's no one buried there, but there are three markers of people who they don't have a grave site somewhere else.
so it's and you're going back to the Eagle Scout. I didn't know there's any more Eagle Scout. Is that still a thing?
That sure is, because it was a few years ago. It was an Eagle Scout that first did some really important work there that made it accessible for people. They poured a wide sidewalk and really cut back some of the bushes and made it very nice. And so this fella,
Is he an Eagle Scout from Cleveland?
he is. He'll be one shortly. This was his final project.
I didn't know you could still get. I didn't. You don't see Boy Scouts around there.
In the newspaper, I'll see them sometimes. So he
Yeah.
was there yesterday.
How old would he be?
He's 2 months from 18.
And an Eagle. That's a big honor, isn't
It still is, yes. Yes.
I mean, that's something to be proud of.
Oh yeah.
But there isn't much going on at our downtown offices, our campus there. We're thinking about naming it at our campus after Ralph Summers, who Dr. Brown mentioned was a founding board member, and he has just passed away about a month ago, and all these years has worked for the betterment of Life Bridges.
Now, Eddie Cartwright, what does he do there besides eat?
He is a board member. Well,
He's a board member, yeah.
I laugh
I
and
bet he's
tell
a
him
very
that,
good board.
Oh,
he's
a
fantastic.
good board member.
because they work for food.
Oh, Eddie.
Lunch is about all we're able to give them, but yes. So we take people who have different talents, a board, if you can imagine, of 14 people, Dr. Brown, communication,
Bob
counseling,
McIntyre.
Oh yeah.
insurance,
Barrett.
banking,
Pat Esley.
Barrett.
Yeah. Barrett Painter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else is on there?
Amy Reedy. Now,
Amy Reedy.
we better
Amy
not
Reedy.
miss one now. We've
Oh
got
yeah. Joe Lee and
Joe Lee, that's
who's
right,
a realtor,
Ken
Kim
Webb.
Webb,
Ken Webb.
Jim Edgmond,
Yeah.
Peggy
Peggy
Pesterfield.
yeah.
Oh. Our women, Martha McDowell.
Yeah.
So that's the three women.
Martha. I had Charlie here a couple weeks ago.
Oh
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
that's interesting.
He
He's
was
fun, too.
He is fun.
He is.
He is a lot of fun. But boy, that's some good
Pat
board
Inslee.
members.
And also
Pat
Dr.
Esley.
Wooten.
Ellie Wood.
Ellie
Thank you.
Wood.
Oh,
Dr.
L.E. Dr. Woot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't seen him in 2 or 3 years, I bet.
Well, he's not out much now because of COVID. His wife is vulnerable, so yeah.
He's careful, but he's out and about. Helps us a lot.
L.E.
miss
Woot. I hadn't
anybody
heard
go
that
around
name.
that table where everybody.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you got some really good
Oh,
board
we do.
members.
David Fair,
David, yeah.
Yeah.
and we should have written those down.
I know
Should have
it.
written those down.
Well, they might. Maybe they don't come. Maybe they're not as.
Oh, they come
Oh, they.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
once a month or once a?
once a month. Yeah.
And what would be the discussions at these?
Oh, how to? Well, there are things that have to be voted on as far as money issues, maybe
Policy.
buying a new van or selling a van, or
You have to have
those
a
kind
vote.
of things.
You have to have somebody
buying
take
a
the
house,
minutes.
maybe,
Policy.
maybe taking on new clients, all kind of things.
You
Very
have, to, you
important.
have to have somebody take the minutes.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, that's it's like working a big manufacturing plant.
Oh my goodness, 500 employees.
I mean, name another company in Cleveland that has 500 employees.
We're about, I'm not
Well,
sure where we are, about 14 on the list right now. There's about 13 ahead of us.
If you don't count the clients, you almost have to count the clients,
yeah, yeah.
wouldn't you?
Well, they don't. When
They
they look
don't.
at employees,
So
it's-
number 14.
we're about 14th in Bradley County. We had been. I hadn't looked
That's
lately.
big.
It's big.
It's a lot to say grace over.
Mm-hmm.
But you think our board is a working board, and they all have different expertises, and we seek them out and their opinions out, and they advise us and help us. And
Now Peggy's on the school board too, right?
yes,
And her husband Joe.
Yeah.
you know, Mayor Rowland was on our board years ago.
And he resigned because he was elected mayor, and that was all those years ago.
Oh, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Now he's mayor. What do they call it?
Emeritus.
Emeritus.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. You?
It means you're not anymore, but we love you, I think. They do it pastor emeritus sometimes for someone.
Do y'all have to cook meals there at the place?
We don't at our main facility, but in each home they do, and everybody usually packs a lunch or eats out during the day. People's lives are very much like your typical life as far as we actually have a video. It's really interesting. A guy in Cleveland, in the video, he goes by Starbucks and gets a cup of coffee, and it just shows him waking up and getting that coffee and going to work. And then it's back and forth, him and an individual in our program. Even though the guy in our program, he gets coffee at home, but he wakes up, same kind of deal, and gets his coffee and packs his lunch and goes to work. So
And we help our clients live normal lives like that.
Yeah, and it's because of y'all that we
Yep.
don't notice.
pretty much, I guess.
Now some people I would say that are homeless, you know, they say there's a tent down below Panera Bread,
I've heard that.
a community of. If you go behind Takoyaki, you can see where they were living, and I think they've moved now down behind Panera Bread. So a lot of those people, I mean, if you're living homeless like that, wouldn't you say you probably need some assistance?
You couldn't say 100%, but many of those people probably have mental illness or have just found that that is a way to live without a lot of headache.
I can see where it would have some advantage.
Once you figure it out,
Can't you? I mean, some.
once you figure it out, I've heard that. But a lot of time it's people have mental illness and they can't feel good somehow about taking their medicine that helps them be more balanced.
But then there are those that are overwhelmed by society,
Yes.
and they just are having a hard time.
How do you classify that? Is that still mental illness?
I think sometimes it's not mental illness. Sometimes they just have hard knocks, you know.
And they've just had enough?
I had enough, yeah. Probably so. You've heard of famous people that lived in a car for a year or two, and then now they're famous and rich, you know.
There's a lot of stories like that.
There are a lot of stories like that.
And a lot of stories on American Idol where they show they
That's
pulled
right.
up in their car. And, you know, some people just do have a series of bad luck.
That's right.
And it's not anything they do.
That's right.
It's nothing that their family did. it's just I get so disgusted with people that think that they made success on their own.
No.
Maybe they did, but just because they did doesn't mean that guy did.
That's right.
It's true.
He could have had. I've often said we're about 3 problems away from being there ourselves.
Oh,
if you had them in a row,
Well,
if you express them out,
Yes.
you're
Have
okay.
It's
children.
important to respect those people also. They deserve respect.
They deserve respect. That has nothing to do with
It doesn't, yeah.
we have a lady that left Life Bridges, and one of our employees, and she is working for the Homeless Coalition in Bradley County, and so that's interesting because we've partnered with her. We have a garage or two here and there, and she is able to place some furniture there and keep it on hold because they don't really have any place to put it. But she would tell you that sometimes you have individuals who, if you lose your job and your car breaks down and you have children and you don't have a babysitter and you can't pay a babysitter, you're not going to be able to leave them. Getting a job is hard if you have no transportation. Most of us had somebody in our life. I have friends that if I needed money or food or a place to live, I could go to. Not everyone has that.
No, and I think society. That's what I was trying to allude to earlier, sort of in a way. I think society is different now, whereas they used to take care of friends and family, and now it's more of a what group can we get to take care of our friends and family. But if you didn't have that, what would you do now?
Because through the homeless shelter and then what our friend Trish is doing, they help people connect with a pretty low budget hotel for a month or two, and they help them to get transportation, to get a job, to get a babysitter.
Because these things, just the series of events, is what causes some of the people that don't have the people that have mental illness. They need to be in the home. Mm-hmm. The ones that don't they just need $5,000 one time,
Maybe another chance.
maybe just a chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the homeless shelter meets a great need for people who need a couple of months to get their feet
And
up.
I don't think the homeless shelter. I think they have a limit on how long they can stay there. Isn't there a limit?
I've
heard
heard
that,
that, and I don't know what it is, but they
And
work
that-
with you.
And that's not but 2 stories. I mean, they can't have.
They don't have very much
There'd
room.
be 10 people there at the most, or something like that. Now, this homeless coalition, I've never heard of that.
There's part of it's a granted program, so it may be up in a year, and it was at least partially put together because of people had problems due to COVID. So you think about it, if you were living paycheck to paycheck and you lost your job because of COVID, then what would you do?
If you didn't have kids, you just go. You just wouldn't worry about it. But if you've got kids, it would be a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It would be a nightmare. I don't know what you'd do. This homeless coalition, so that didn't exist prior to that?
I don't think so. I think from what I have heard from her, it's like a 1.5 year grant, and perhaps they'll see what the need is and how many people they've actually been able to help.
And how do they help them? I mean,
Well, they give them a safe place to stay, and then she begins to help them unravel, what to do first. If you have a place to stay, then somebody needs to get a job, somebody needs to stay with the children, to get a job, get money coming in, get a babysitter or whatever, all needs to happen in order for it to take place.
Would be hard to go home at
And
night if
groceries.
you had her job, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I do worry about her some but so it's great because Life Bridges, we are a social service agency. Many people who work for us, our board, caring. So it was great just because we know her, you know, to be able to say, she's like, oh, I've got this bed and a chest of drawers and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I can't take all this stuff home and we don't really have a place, but I hate to let it go because it's in really good shape. And we were happy to say, hey, we've got about a fourth of a garage that's empty where we keep other things, and we can store that there, those items. And so she has a lot of people give her food too.
Is she by herself?
No, she works with a team of several people.
Who decided that she should be in charge of that?
Well, I think she is one of the case managers, so there's somebody over that.
Somebody.
Yeah. I'm not sure who they're connected with, but they're probably connected with some agency in
So
Chattanooga.
maybe they just send them to some of these lower end motel rooms.
There's a number. They have a card, and I think a lot of social service people, because you know in Cleveland, if you've got a problem, you probably go to the caring place, and then there's a social worker there who will meet with you and give you resources. And so they're all connected. United Way, the caring place,
Salvation Army.
they all are connected, and they know about this
Helping Hands.
coalitions. Nice. You know a lot about social service agencies.
Yeah, I've known. You got to have them. I don't know what you do without them.
It's good work, especially when you can help people to get on their feet, and then, you know, they can provide for themselves after that.
I'm like you. Sometimes they just need a chance. Now, some people it doesn't matter, but if you're in those positions, just giving somebody a month's free rent isn't going to solve all their problems. It's just going to let them get, you know.
Well, it's working all those issues out to give them a moment to do that.
Yeah, to try to get ahead of the problems instead of behind them. Do you think y'all are going to get larger, take in area counties? If you lived outside of the county, could you come to your place?
I think hiring is one of the barriers to us growing, but we don't have that many referrals of people that we are not able to help. But I will say, you look at, you know, because I think what you were touching on a little bit is, you know, like who's worthy of help. And that is one of the things about the people who are provided services through At Life Bridges. You know, none of them did anything to cause themselves to be in need. Most, I'll say not, I wouldn't say none, but most people are simply born with brain damage, or something has happened to them in birth or through a disorder that they have that causes them not to be able to function independently.
In our society.
Yeah.
If there was more of them than there are us, we couldn't function in their society.
But
Think about that.
there are a lot of caring people. You think about it among them. But Dr. Brown's principles he was talking about is still something we have to teach people, even who have intellectual disabilities, to respect other people and care about other people and not press their opinions or, you know, take the biggest helping all the time or whatever it is. Not to talk over other people who are talking. Same.
I have that problem.
You know, just all those things. People, you know, it's because I think back to, we're just sort of self-centered. That's our people's nature. We're just sort of, I don't mean that, I don't know that it's always on purpose, but we just know when we're hungry and when we want something that we don't have, or when we want to do something and we, you know, if we don't have good impulse control, then we're pressing.
I don't know what the answer would be, though, if we're going to get larger or not. 50 years from now, would we be larger? I don't really know what.
Depends how much Bradley County grows. I mean, I guess as much as we're growing, and
Yeah, and is it related to the size of our county? And what do you do about the people that live in another county that don't have this service? What do they do?
Most counties do have it. So, like McMinn has it. Ray County has a program like ours. I do think services are changing.
Is it all under the same umbrella? from the federal
It's
government?
the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. That's a state department, and then they do get federal funds. So the funding
Does other states have that same?
all over the state.
Every state. Is there a state that doesn't have it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Is there a county that doesn't have?
I don't.
Most of them are close to another county that would. Like you think about McMinn's is called Tri-County. So that's
Okay.
probably Meigs, McMinn.
Because it probably goes on a certain. So these things are each state's thing regulated by the I guess the government says if you want this money,
Oh.
then and that's where you get into
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Right.
Now, what about SETHRA? How does it fit into this?
Southeast
whole scheme?
Tennessee Human Resource Agency. So what do you think about what you know about SETHRA? That's one of the things SETHRA does is public transportation.
Because y'all have none of that, right? Or do you?
We don't use their transportation. We have about 100-something vehicles that we.
Why not use SETHRA? Is that that's not under this same department you're
No,
talking
it-
about?
It wouldn't meet our needs, really.
It just be we keep them pretty busy. You know,
In
everybody
other words,
going
in other words,
someplace.
you can't. A lot of your clients, you can't have them just getting on a bus, and
Oh no,
Right.
no.
you need somebody to take them.
They would need care. Or
But SETHRA is still a
supervision.
good thing,
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Just-
Oh,
We
yes.
have a few people who use SETHRA. We have a few people.
But it wouldn't be for the mentally challenged, right?
It could. It's just that we would be going.
You have drivers.
It's the staff.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have
Staff.
drivers per se because people are always asking they want to come to work to be a driver.
Yeah,
It's
it'd
the
be an
staff.
easy job, wouldn't it?
Because if you live with a group of 3 and you have one staff, and one person has to go to the doctor, we all have to go. Or so that doesn't work as well for SETHRA because
Right,
SETHRA.
yeah.
So they taking one guy to the
And
doctor
they're
and
on
they
the
end
route,
up with
too.
4 people. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to wherever it might be.
Boy, it's a very complicated what you do. When you wake up in the morning, you go, oh my God.
Not usually. I mean, I think it helps. There are times when there are, COVID was one of those and has
Yeah.
been one of those very difficult situations to.
When did you think, boy, we got to think about this?
Well, we pretty well weren't going out in the community sometime in March, and it probably was a year before people went a lot. I was telling the gentleman that was here earlier, we had a mom in our community who's older, and she told me that she'd just seen her son and that she hadn't seen him in a year, and they both live right here in Cleveland. Now, I had told her she could have seen him during that time, but she said, I was just too afraid. I was afraid that, that I might have contracted something I live in a big apartment complex, and I just didn't want to take a chance to...
A lot of people were being extremely
careful. Certainly. It will seem like, that was one of the dilemmas. That's what's tough about life is dilemmas. Nothing you do seems like a really good answer because there were about 50% of the people, that thought, you were being too cautious, and then about 50% of the people thought you were not
Yeah.
being cautious enough.
Yeah.
So if you ever, that's always tricky when you feel like, boy, nobody.
Nobody had an answer.
No.
You almost can't blame anybody for the decisions they made this past year on that end
just
because they
tried
were
really
just
hard.
doing their
Still
best
going on a
too.
little bit
Yeah,
like that, yeah.
yeah.
Certainly.
Nobody knows the answer. So what do you? How are you going to be at this position for a while?
I hope so. Maybe we could get that on the air, Dr. Brown. I'm hoping, I'm hoping to work at least 8 more years. I'll be 70 then, and I
Is
would
that
like,
right?
I'd
So
like
you're
to do
60.
that, too, almost 62. I'm proud of it.
Does it worry you getting older?
Oh,
I mean, did it bother you when you pass 60?
I'm one of those people who just stays really busy, so I don't think about it.
What do you do besides this?
Well, I just have a lot of things going on. I teach Sunday school. I have a daughter who just graduated from Lee University. I've been married 41 years. I have a home. We have a home. We have plans.
Where do you go to church at?
North Cleveland Church of God,
That's right here.
right close to us. I just have a lot of friends. I'm busy. I'm about life, and I try not to think about things that worry
Do
me.
you think it's better to stay busy or not so busy?
For me, it is. It's a coping mechanism. I'm not sure. I'm sure Dr. Brown would tell me I am too busy, and that keeps me from doing things perhaps I should do.
What do you think?
My family.
I think balance is important.
What's the balance?
I think.
Do you think it changes with age?
Probably it's with person also, but I think we need to have fun. We need relaxation. We need to be productive and work. We need rest. We need exercise.
But you almost can't do it if you're not all in, can you?
Well,
That's my
I
problem.
agree with Dr. Brown 100%.
I
but
agree
I'm
with
like
him
one of
too.
his clients. I know it.
I agree with him in principle, but I don't know about.
I don't do it.
Who can when you're all in?
I better be careful. He's going to be making me an appointment. But I guess some of us will just,
Or is that just the way we're geared? Just like some of these people, some of your clients, they're geared that way. We're geared this way. He's geared
That's
that
true.
way.
I will
Maybe it's
say-
all okay.
I get high off of it. I don't feel depressed or,
Is it the adrenaline?
It fuels me. I'm still not saying it's good because
What?
even the Lord rested on the seventh day, and
What?
I'm working on that.
What fuels you?
Being busy and having things to do and things
Frantically
to think about.
busy or just?
I guess just always having something to do. I'm not frantic.
I mean, stay up to 2 in the morning finishing something busy, or just stay to the office till
Occasionally.
5:30 busy. Because there's a difference, right?
I think so, yeah.
Well, at Life Bridges, I told you about all these 8 or 9 people. Like many of them would be the type, and this was what Walter instilled in us. See, this was another problem in my youth. I was only like 20-something years old. Was to work if that work was very important. Like he would say, God, work, and then your family. I hope Walter doesn't watch that.
Did he even ever? I think he used to eat at Cope's restaurant a lot.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
And
those days.
And the hamburger steak place, not Willie's.
Reimers,
It was on Spring Place Road.
the green fly. We call it the green fly.
Yes, over in there.
Yeah,
But Walter said if you loved your family, you'd work and take care of them.
Well, that's a good point. So when is it about you?
But
Right? When is it about ourselves? And not about the family? Because should we just keep working? Because we never know which grandson might need a lung.
I'm with you on
I mean,
that.
are
I'm
we-
really
do
with
we
you
not-
on that, Dee. I don't know. I already told you I'm hoping to work till I'm 70, and I've got people who think
where
that's
does
horrible.
our obligation stop to our family? And
I don't know. I'd rather die.
you know what I'm saying?
working.
If we can work, shouldn't we work?
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, who deserves to take off all day?
I
mean,
don't know.
did society create this idea of 65 and retired, or when did that come about?
Well, I think it's probably
I think he realized
important
it's
to
going to
be
be another
productive.
hour.
Yeah, I think it's important to be productive, actually, all of our lives.
Oh.
Productive is one thing. Everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about working for the dollar.
Oh, I see.
There's a difference. Because one, you got to satisfy other
Sure.
people
Right.
in exchange for this money, and the other, you're just, I'm taking the grandkids swimming and I'm busy.
Right.
That's really not.
Yeah,
That's
right.
just having
Right.
fun in a
Busy,
disguised
Fun
way.
work, too.
Yeah. So
So when did our society say, okay, at 65, if you're not retired, you should be retired? I mean, that's a fictitious age, right? All because of Social Security?
well, I think, though, that when to retire is much more complicated than 65. I think that it's up to the individual, and there's so many dynamics that goes into that, and really.
I think you need to have Dr. Brown come back on
Yeah,
because
like-
I would like to hear more about probably some ways he could lead us.
That'd cost us. What do you charge an hour?
It's $140 an hour.
Is that for per couple? That's what, $70 each?
It's just by the hour.
Do
Yeah.
you ever have sessions where only one person comes in the marriage counseling? You're trying to work out this marriage, but only one will come.
Yeah, I've had those.
That's tricky, isn't it?
Are you the type that has no marital everything smooth?
Oh, I think conflict is healthy. I think there's a healthy conflict, and I think it's part of life. Normal life and healthy life has conflict. So I think we need to be aware of that and deal with it appropriately. The conflict-free life is not what's most desirable.
It doesn't exist. Does
Oh,
it?
I don't think so. Well, it may exist, but it wouldn't be desirable. But maybe it doesn't even exist. I don't know.
What philosophy? Are you much into philosophy or just psychology, or is it the same thing?
I don't know. Like what do you mean by?
I mean, who would be your philosopher if you was to read a book on philosophy?
I dread to almost say this, but I think Jesus Christ. I mean, really, I think.
You think it's all in the Bible how we need to live?
Well, I think the core principles are there.
I like that too. I think that's good.
Yeah, the core principles are
Well, it's
there.
been around longer than the others.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think y'all are doing a really wonderful thing, and I noticed that your notes. Do we need to cover anything else? Or we didn't even look at them, did we?
We were careful with it. We did pretty well. One thing I didn't say, Sherry Williamson is our employee that has worked with us for the longest amount of time, and she is a special education teacher. She's been with us 40 years and is continuing to work. And you think about the icons of life bridges. She's one of those.
She didn't retire, and she still gets excited about her work.
Yes, she does.
She does. Yeah.
And the Blue Goose. Do you remember the Blue Goose? It was a big bus that was blue that we had years ago, and Walter used to always say that it was broken down on every corner in Bradley
There used
County.
to be a bar at the end of Ladd Springs Road. The Blue Goose. Am I right?
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
So.
I did make some notes, but what I thought was very important for us to cover, and I think we have, is that Life Bridges makes a contribution to this community, and we also make a contribution to the lives of some very important individuals, and we help people to live better lives.
Yes.
That is without question.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees with that.
And I think we always say that with a lot of passion and emotion.
I think that's evident here. You both you've got a lot of passion for this.
We're blessed people to,
And
that
you
this
do
is our
it
way.
free.
That's
right?
That's right, yeah.
Where in your background did you get this need to help people?
Wow.
Because it's there.
Yeah, I don't know.
You agree with that?
I do.
I just think that's the most important thing in life.
I know you do. But where did you get that thought?
Don't you think the Lord must have planted that in him? Where else would you get that?
He got it from somebody, I believe. I'm reading that.
I don't know. I don't really know.
Your mother or father? Or?
My mother was the most important person in my life, yeah. She died 45 years ago this year.
Did you think that she was a big influence to you wanting to be helpful to people? Because that's what you generally are wanting to do.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, you really want to help.
I think this life is made up of givers and takers, and I want to be a giver.
And you don't know why, you just do. I appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you so much.
Y'all did so much
Thank you
for
for
Cleveland.
having us.
Thank you. It's been a
Thanks
pleasure.
for coming.